London, in an unprecedented fictional crisis that has shaken the foundations of British politics, Sir Keir Starmer, long regarded as the steadying force capable of unifying the Labour Party and restoring public confidence, now finds himself confronting what many political insiders are calling the most severe and dangerous challenge of his leadership, as a leaked confidential Brexit-related document has ignited outrage, resignations, and political chaos across the country, creating a perfect storm that threatens both his authority and the party's credibility in the eyes of voters, with the controversy centering on a secret agreement reportedly made with Brussels that contained concessions widely seen as favoring European interests, including trade arrangements that critics argue undermine domestic industries, the rollback of protections for northern industrial regions that had been promised as part of post-Brexit recovery, and the surrender of fishing rights to international regulators, all of which appeared to directly contradict repeated public assurances by that Labour would respect the result of the 2016 Brexit referendum and prioritise the interests of communities that had voted leave, a breach of trust that has been felt most keenly in northern constituencies historically considered the backbone of Labour support, and where local activists and long-standing party members have voiced feelings of betrayal, claiming that the leadership has systematically ignored the voices of the very people whose loyalty had been pivotal in reversing Conservative gains in previous elections, with the leak, allegedly originating from a whistleblower within Starmer's inner circle, spreading like wildfire across social media, prompting instant condemnation, viral videos of shocked MPs reacting to the news, and calls for accountability from every corner of the political landscape, while Labour offices across the UK, from London to Manchester, Liverpool to Newcastle, were flooded with angry messages, emails, and phone calls demanding explanations. And emergency meetings were convened by local branches where members engaged in heated debate, with some threatening to resign if the leadership did not offer immediate transparency, illustrating the intensity of dissatisfaction that had quietly been brewing for months. As discontent simmered beneath the surface, growing silently through corridors of power as backbench MPs whispered in hallways, party whips struggled to maintain control, and allies who had once been considered loyal retreated into cautious silence, creating a sense that the very fabric of Labour's organisational structure was beginning to fray at a critical political moment, particularly with a general election looming on the horizon and the party poised to capitalise on weaknesses in the Conservative leadership, only for this crisis to threaten those electoral prospects and destabilise the carefully crafted image of Starmer as a disciplined, competent leader. Veteran MPs, such as John Trickett, spoke passionately on the floor of Parliament, condemning what they described as a breach of principle and a betrayal of trust, emphasizing that the party's legitimacy rested not merely on policy but on honesty and integrity, while union leaders from organizations such as Unite and GMB publicly expressed their outrage, warning that the party could not hope to retain the confidence of working-class voters if the leaked deal was enacted or even tacitly approved, and urging immediate corrective measures to restore credibility, further intensifying the pressure on Starmer, as backbenchers drafted a formal no-confidence motion, signaling extraordinary dissent that experts argue has rarely been seen in modern British politics, and indicating that the internal fractures within Labour were now too visible to ignore, particularly in constituencies where voters had previously shown renewed enthusiasm for Labour after years of Conservative dominance, meaning the political cost of inaction could be devastating, with analysts noting that trust, once lost, is difficult to regain, and that the party risks alienating the very communities it had promised to protect. While media coverage relentlessly dissected the leaked document, with commentators debating whether it represented a strategic necessity, a miscalculation, or a catastrophic as social media became an unrelenting forum for debate, outrage, and speculation, with hashtags denouncing the leadership trending nationally, political influencers weighing in on the implications, and partisan commentators on both sides framing the controversy to suit their agendas, creating an environment of confusion and tension that extended beyond the party to the public at large. In the fictional narrative of this crisis, emergency meetings at party headquarters reflected a struggle to regain control, with advisors suggesting potential reshuffles, public clarifications, or targeted outreach to the party's base. But the options were fraught with risk, as each decision carried the potential to alienate either the grassroots, activists demanding accountability, or the broader electorate looking for stability, a dilemma that left Starmer and his inner circle in an unprecedented state of political vulnerability. While in northern cities such as Hull, Sunderland, Burnley, and Stockton, Local organizers interviewed in fictional reports described their frustration and sense of betrayal, highlighting a disconnect between the national leadership and the communities they serve, and emphasizing the urgency of re-establishing trust before the situation deteriorated further. As the fictional story unfolds, the crisis impacts not just the party internally but also resonates nationally, creating concern among international observers about Britain's negotiating stance with the EU, with some foreign diplomats reportedly unsure how Labour would approach trade and regulatory issues if the party maintained power, while nationalist parties in Scotland and Wales seized the moment to highlight Labour's perceived instability, framing it as evidence that regional autonomy and alternative political representation were necessary, and using the chaos to strengthen their arguments for independence or greater devolution. While in Northern Ireland, similar concerns were raised, with cross-party discussions paused or delayed amid uncertainty over the broader political context, and the public looking for guidance as media outlets scrambled to report, analyze, and interpret the rapid escalation of events, often framing the crisis as a defining moment in modern British political history. Fictional public reactions mirrored the intensity of political developments, with protests erupting across London, Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Bristol, and smaller towns where citizens expressed anger, confusion, or support, creating a patchwork of demonstration, social unrest, and political debate that added urgency to Labour's efforts to manage the fallout, while analysts suggested that the crisis represented more than a temporary policy disagreement, but rather a deep structural test of leadership, legitimacy, and the ability of the party to maintain cohesion under extreme stress, particularly when internal mechanisms for communication and decision-making were revealed to be fragile, opaque, or unresponsive, leaving grassroots members feeling excluded from crucial decisions that affected their constituencies directly. Meanwhile, fictional polling data indicated a sharp decline in trust among voters who had previously returned to Labour after leaving in prior elections, raising concerns about electoral viability, with some strategists warning that even a successful recovery of credibility might not undo the immediate damage, as public perception often lags behind internal corrections, and that the opposition, though weakened, might exploit this moment of vulnerability to consolidate support, further compounding the challenge for the fictional narrative also highlights the psychological and personal toll of the crisis, with Starmer described as facing immense pressure, private meetings dominated by tension and disagreement, and advisors struggling to present clear options amidst a landscape where every decision risked further political fallout, while public and media scrutiny intensified daily, with outlets publishing op-eds, analyses, and interviews that often questioned the core competence of the leadership, turning internal disagreements into national debate, and creating an environment where every statement, clarification, or correction was interpreted as either weakness or hypocrisy, complicating any efforts at damage control. The broader implications of the crisis are significant, affecting not just electoral prospects but also the identity and values of Labour as a party, with discussions about the party's role, obligations to working-class communities, and alignment with broader political principles, dominating internal debates and public discourse, as fictional narratives suggest that failure to reconcile these tensions could result in long-term damage to both reputation and political influence, while successful resolution might require unprecedented transparency, engagement, and a reaffirmation of core principles in order to restore faith in leadership, rebuild trust with both members and voters, and reassert the party's relevance in national politics, ultimately determining whether Labour emerges strengthened or further fragmented, and shaping the trajectory of British politics for years to come.